A tree and a magical rune, a Renaissance fair, and a gypsy's mystical kissing booth. How are they connected? Stay tuned.
Welcome to Page One, the award-winning show for writers with the reader in mind.
That draws the reader along, just like fiction.
Here's your host and producer, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Page One. My guest tonight is a good friend and a very talented writer. She has a new series of books out, and I can't wait for you to meet her and to learn about the books. Her name is Deborah Davis. Deborah, thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I love the whole idea because of my grandson. I love looking for young adult fiction. He's not quite ready for that yet, but he will be. And I'm always looking for stories I think he would be interested in. And you have something that's so exciting. I can't wait to tell everybody about it. So I know that we're talking about a series of books that you've written. First one is out, second one is coming. But what's the series called and what's it about?
The series is called Love Affairs. Love Affairs?
Love of Fairs.
Yes.
Okay.
And each book has something to do with a fair. But each story is a different fair, a different cast of characters, and they all have a legend in common.
Okay, so speaking of that legend, that's a perfect tie-in. This is something that I found on your website, and I thought this was just so intriguing. I want to read this to you. This is from Deborah Davis's website about this new series, A Love of Fairs. So it says, The Legend. If it be the anniversary of your birth when you first kiss, that blessed moment over the ancient rune becomes your union of destiny. Long ago, before time had forgotten, an ordinary tree was forever changed when a magical rune was carved into its trunk. To keep its power out of the hands of those who would abuse it, the tree was taken down and cut into planks. Although these boards were used to construct a gypsy's mystical kissing booth, many said the destruction of the tree was the undoing of the magical power of the rune. What do you believe? Read the tales of the Love of Fairs series and decide for yourself. That is so intriguing. I read that and I thought, oh yeah, I'll tell my grandson I'm getting it for him, but I'll read them first. So tell us about the first of the two books that you've written so far for the series. The first one, Fairly Certain. That's the one that's out now. So what's the plot and who are the characters for that one?
The story is about a computer geek named Peter Capote, and he is playing a GPS game in the woods. He's a college student. While he is playing the game in the woods, he falls out of a tree, and when he wakes up, he thinks he has gone back into Robin Hood times.
Ah, okay.
But in actuality, at the end of the woods, there is a Renaissance fair, and he's been picked up by LARPers, live action role players.
Oh, okay. Oh, I like this idea. So we have a computer geek, Peter, who is the lead for the first book.
Yes.
What about the second book, Fairly Safe?
The second book is about a young man, also college age, who has a part-time job. His name is Jacob. Has a part-time job as a chauffeur for a rich eccentric. And this rich guy likes to go to fairs all the time. So Jacob takes him to the fairs, and he keeps running into the same girl every time he goes there. So he keeps trying to get her name. She won't tell him. Finally, he finds out that she's in witness protection, but her cover has been blown.
Oh, fascinating. Now, I'm thinking, okay, so you have male leads for these two stories, and we know that there's a kissing booth that plays a prominent role in the series. And is this same kissing booth at all of these fairs?
Yes.
Oh, I like this idea. I like this a lot. So you mentioned that your protagonist in both stories is college age. Who's the intended audience? What's the age range for the books?
The category I would go for would be new adult.
The new adult, okay.
It's a type of book that all ages seem to enjoy. I have one woman who bought the book for her godson who was 12, and he has been a reader since day one, and she said that he has stated this is his favorite book. And then there is another person who is several years my senior, sells chickens at my local farmer's market. And when he bought the book, I thought he was just being supportive. And he told me that he really liked the book, and he usually keeps them in the bathroom and reads a couple of chapters at a time, and then he had to take this book out of the bathroom because he wanted to know what was going to happen.
Oh, very nice. See, there you go. That's high praise.
Yes, it is. So it's a wide range of ages.
It is a range. And one of the things that occurs to me that I do want to get into is the fact that for I don't know how many years you've been a teacher teaching high school science.
Yes.
So what is it about your knowledge, your understanding of, I guess the best way to phrase it would be the insecurities of students? You know, what did you observe from that you wind up incorporating into your books?
My characters are all combinations of the students I've known over the years.
Okay.
I find the students so interesting and so clever and so funny, and they really do have a wonderful sense of humor.
Yes.
And you'll find that a lot of the humor appears in my books. Many of the jokes or quips are things that I've heard kids say. The characters in both of my books are people who underestimate their own potential. And as a high school teacher, the thing I was good at was saying to the kids, you actually have really good potential. Why don't you try this and see where it takes you? I encouraged them, and they responded to that. My characters in the books need something to help them feel stronger about themselves, feel more self-assured, and each one does.
Gosh, Deborah, I mean, I would love it if there were a cloning machine and you could get into the machine and you know, have teachers everywhere. I'm sure that many of them are exactly like that. That's why they go into the field, want to encourage their students. That's just so important. So I wanted to ask you about creating the characters, and you mentioned that they are a combination of people you've met, of students you've taught, and you've mentioned that sometimes you take pieces of their humor, little pieces of dialogue. What else do you take, or what are the tools you use to create the characters?
I've seen teenage angst for 20, almost 30 years. I'm not counting the angst in my house.
Okay.
And I see them go from feeling completely hopeless to feeling completely jubilant within a few minutes span.
Yeah.
And I convey that in my characters in the book. And sometimes some people say, well, I mean, people don't flip over that quickly. And I'm here to say, yes, they do. Kids change on a dime.
Yeah,
and
you've lived with it.
Yes, and they get encouraged and excited and confident. When you don't even expect that something you say is going to matter, it matters. All of a sudden, it matters, and they take off, and they don't need you anymore. It's like the little kid on the bicycle with the training wheels, and they take off, and they don't need you anymore, and they're good. And you never know what you say is going to trigger that kind of a response. It's really exciting.
And it has to be so gratifying. It has to be gratifying for you as the teacher, empowering for them, just a win-win all around. So in the series itself, I take it that the main character, Peter in the first story, Jacob in the second, they don't appear then in other books. I mean,
No, they don't.
They have only their own story.
Correct.
But is there any recurring character other than the legend?
The kissing booth is owned by a gypsy, and she is in all of the books.
Okay. What is her name?
Anna, Miss Anna.
Miss Anna. Okay. Okay. I know I'm going to like her. So this is kind of like that old television show, The Love Boat. where you have every episode would have new people,
Exactly.
and coming
So
onto
the theme is the fairs, a variety of fairs, but the characters are living in their own world and experiencing their own situations.
I like that. So will some of the lead characters be female also?
Eventually, yes.
Good. Okay.
The heroine in all of these stories is a very strong heroine. So I don't have a dominant male perspective. It starts with him and it ends with him, but she's right in there with them.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, I definitely want to read this. I want to talk with you about the craft of writing, because a lot of people who watch Page One, they write. I get emails and I get, there's a group that meets at the Barnes & Noble in Glastonbury. I get comments from people, and they like to know, when I have a guest on who's a writer, they want me to ask questions about the craft of writing. So I know that, because I know you, because we're friends, we're both members of the Charter Oak Writers
Right.
Organization, which is affiliated with Romance Writers of America. How important is it to you to belong to a writers organization?
I stopped teaching after almost 30 years of teaching in June.
Wow.
So I've gone from being around hundreds of people since I was about 4 years old to now living pretty solitary life with just my family. And belonging to a group allows me that interaction of a larger population that I miss from teaching. I miss teaching an awful lot,
I bet you do.
but I'm loving what I'm doing now.
Well, let me ask a couple craft questions, and then I want to go back to that idea that you just quit teaching. I mean, that's pretty big. But before we get there, when you're writing a story, are you what they call a pantster? You just write by the seat of your pants. Do you have an outline? How do you work?
I'm not much of an outline person. However, once I get point A and point Q, then I might outline the part in the middle.
Okay.
But in general, I'll be driving along and I'll hear a song on the radio and the plot just starts developing up in my head.
What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to everything. I like some classical if it is very, very strong, emotional music and with a beat. And I like Black Eyed Peas, and I like Mamas and the Papas and the Beach Boys, and in individual songs.
So you're saying that story ideas will come to you from song lyrics?
Yes. There's a song called That's Not My Name, I think by an artist called Ting Ting.
I don't know
and
that.
this girl's singing, "That's not my name, that's not my name." They call me this, they call me that. That's not my name, that's not my name. And my head popped into this image of little girls jumping up and down on a bed singing, "That's not my name, that's not my name." And that's where the story Fairly Safe came from.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's very interesting. What about,
Because they're in witness protection.
of course. Oh, of course, then that would, oh, I can see that. So did you have an idea for the idea of witness protection first, and then hearing the song, it was, well, I'll incorporate something in there about the name, or was it hearing the song
It
first?
came out of the song.
Oh, very nice. Oh, that's good to know. And then your stories have a little twist.
Yes.
And I don't want to reveal anything, but do you have a source for those too?
It just, all the stories I love when I was growing up, the movies or books, always made you go, whoa, I didn't know that was coming. So that's the genre I write. I write whoa stories.
I like that too. I like that too. Do your endings, I don't know quite how to phrase it. Is it more like a mystery where a puzzle is solved? Is it a relationship that ends on some kind of a happy or hopeful note? How would you describe the endings?
Unexpected.
Okay,
There's always something at the end that you didn't think was coming.
I like that. Now, there's a book out now. I'm sure that you and I both have a lot of the same titles on our how-to library of books. And one that I have found to be one of the most helpful is a book by Lisa Cron. It's called Wired for story. And the concept of the book is that something happens in the brain when people are reading fiction. And as the writer, if you know what it is that happens in the brain when the person is reading certain parts of fiction, and there's a satisfaction and a knowledge, it is very positive, things that are happening, then you as the writer will know what to write when in order to help trigger that response. Because she says that it's not the whole truth that people read fiction to escape. She says that fiction provides the tools for survival, and that's why people read fiction. So I wondered, I do believe that. I think that's true. That's Lisa Cron, Wired for Story, if you're also a writer and you're looking for that book. So Deborah, I want to know, do you see life lessons, survival lessons in your books?
Absolutely. Once a teacher, always a teacher.
I bet, yeah.
So my students, when they read the book, they'll realize that I'm preaching at them again. So, I taught environmental science, so I'm earth conscious, and I try to put little bits of conversation, people talking about, oh, you should take care of this because it's better for the earth, comments.
Oh, no, you can't gloss over that one. Tell me more about that. So,
for example, in Fairly Certain,
okay,
he thinks that he's in the outlaw camp, and the people are living on the land out in the woods. And one of the conversations they're having is that the deer are looking sickly. And herds of animals, unlike people, don't hoard things. So humans will say, hold on to wealth, or hold on to oil, or hold on to water, and others will not have it. But for a herd, if there's not enough food, they're all hungry. They don't hold on to things. So you'll end up looking at a herd that doesn't look healthy, and you'll know that the entire environment is not healthy.
Oh, okay, so you're getting across some very useful, helpful information for readers as citizens of the earth.
Yes.
As well as enjoying something, enjoying the story
And
itself.
that lesson specifically was about that you shouldn't be messing with nature, because it was referring to one of the national parks, who shall go unnamed, where they checked the population of the deer and they found it very low at a particular point, and they said, oh no, it's the wolves. So they went out and they killed all of the wolves. And in the process, they upset the balance of nature there incredibly, because without predators, the deer grew unchecked, and they ate up all the bushes and the grass, and so there was no home or
Habitat?
Not habitat, but protection
Okay.
for birds and small rodents and things like that. So they were eaten by all their predators, and then the trees, without their foliage, lost their ability to grow, and so they died, and then there were no roots to hold the dirt, and then the rain came and swished all the dirt into the rivers, and so the rivers got polluted, not polluted, but clogged. So the fish didn't survive, and they ended up trying to reintroduce the wolves. So now there's a whole different set of species there.
I do know what you're talking about. I did follow that story. And you're right, the smallest change, there's a ripple effect.
Exactly,
And that,
which is part of my blog, is the ripple effect.
oh, I like that. Okay, that's very good. In fact, this is a good time here. Good time, Deborah. I'm going to ask you to read. I picked a little passage here from your book, from the first book, Fairly Certain. And if you would read maybe like from here. You
Okay.
can see a spot over there. So this gives the readers a little flavor for the writing and for the story.
Okay, and where this is
Okay.
Peter has gone out into the woods, and he has fallen out of the tree, and he is by himself, and this
Okay.
is when he wakes up. Peter stopped himself from opening his eyes when he realized there were bits of something on his face. Why was he on his back on the ground instead of in a tree searching for the road? Slowly, the details came. He was disoriented by the smell of disturbed earth and decayed leaves filling his nostrils. Or maybe he, in fact, had dirt in his nose. He hadn't actually moved since he fell out of the tree, so he wasn't quite sure. Correction. He hadn't moved since he plummeted, rolled, tumbled, slid, crashed down the hill after falling out of the tree. He groaned aloud as he gingerly surveyed his battered body for damage. Despite some newly acquired grit, his teeth were intact. Head still moved, although it pounded. Toes wiggled. Ribs ached. Arms and shoulders worked but were sore. Yup, Pete, tree climbing was a seriously stupid idea. At the time, of course, the idea hadn't seemed stupid. How difficult could it be for a lost computer geek to clamber up a low-limbed tree like he was a little kid, get his bearings, and jump down? Later, he could scold himself for too many hours behind a computer and not enough hours at the tennis table. But right now, he needed to spit and wipe this crap off his face so he could open his eyes. He brushed his palms off and slowly propped himself up on an elbow. Everything hurt, but it all seemed to be working. That was a relief. He had no backup plan for being alone in the woods with an injury. He spat out what he hoped was only dirt and ran his tongue over the remaining grit while he wiped around his eyes. Gross.
That's great, and that has that ring of authenticity, that you've got this young man out in the woods. And I just have to mention, it occurred to me as you were reading, what you don't know is that Deborah is also a personal trainer, and I thought, oh my gosh, you're hitting on all the physical things that would have happened. That's perfect. I want to ask you about, and I want to switch gears here for a minute and go into the whole publishing idea. You have chosen self-publishing route, what they call now indie publishing. So popular. I mean, I know lots of people doing this. I'm looking at a project myself to do. And so everybody's experience has been different. So I want to ask you, what would you say are the pros and cons based on your experience for independent publishing?
The pros and cons, I think that for a lot of people boil down to money matters. The thing is that if you are taken by a publishing house, they will front the money. And if you do it yourself, you have to come up with all the money yourself. And so for a lot of people, that's a big deterrent. Right. But if you're self-publishing, you get to have the say in everything. You know, I'm God.
Yes.
And I got to design the cover. I got to decide how I wanted the plot to go. I did hire freelancers. I got a graphic artist to make my cover, and I got my daughter actually designed it, and the graphic artist put it together.
Oh, nice.
And she designed the other cover too.
Very nice.
And I hired an editor, and for the amount of money I paid them, they gave me 3 edits and 2 sets of eyes on the book. And then I got a printer, and I met him through Kappa U, the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. They have a convention or a conference every year, and he was presenting there. It's King Printing up in Lowell, Mass. So they walked me through it as a first-time writer, and were very patient with me and my trying to beat the clock to get my books out so I could go to the Big E last year. So I've been very, very lucky with the freelancers that I've picked. But it's confusing. This is my favorite phrase is that I am building the airplane while I'm trying to fly it. You know, I mean, when it was time for me to get the book set up, the printers said that they needed to know how big the book was going to be. The graphic artist said they needed to know how many pages it was going to be so they would know how wide to make the spine. The editor said, well, I won't know how many pages it's going to be until you get the size of the book. So it's like this. Everybody was confusing me. I didn't know what to do, and finally I figured out that, oh, I'm supposed to pick the size of the cover, the dimensions of the cover, and then everything else would fall into place. But nobody knew that that was the piece I was missing, so nobody
and they didn't know that you didn't know that.
Right.
That's, I think, what's one of the hardest things is when you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So it doesn't even occur to you that you have to find that information. And then also, you have to do the marketing.
The marketing.
You come on shows like Page One, but you have to, you're sending your book out. You're the one who is showing it to everyone in the world, where if you've gone the traditional publishing route, they're doing that for you. They're also taking the bulk of the proceeds. So, it's, I liken so much of it to, if you find when you've gone through that first experience that you like all those aspects of publishing, my gosh, you can't go wrong doing it yourself. It just
I
all falls
don't
into
mind
place.
it, but it totally diminishes the amount of time you have for writing.
That's a good point too.
That's the, if I was going to switch out, it would be for that reason, so I could go back to writing. I used to, when I was teaching, I used to write during the summers. And then during school, I couldn't do it because I throw myself wholeheartedly into whatever I'm working on. So if I'm teaching, I'm teaching. If I'm writing, I'm writing.
Well, that leads me to the question then, because I did want to get back to what you said earlier, that you have quit teaching. After how many years, 20-some years?
Yep.
You have quit teaching in order to write full-time. So what was it about that, what happened that you said, this is it, this is the time I'm going to do it now?
I just want to say I have an extremely understanding husband.
Okay.
Let's just
Very
start with
important.
that one, yes. I started writing the books when I got slowed down from Lyme disease. And I had to stop teaching because I couldn't. And that's when I actually accumulated some stuff to write. And then I started writing during the summers. So about 5 years I did that. And I got my inspiration from that song. And then I went to a Renaissance fair, and a conversation with a blacksmith got me into the next plot. I stopped writing Fairly Safe, and I started writing Fairly Certain, and that's the one that came out first. But at the time when I stopped teaching, both of them had been written. So I had 2 books, and I thought, let's just go for it.
And this series will continue, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that is the plan.
Yes, the book I'm writing now is called Fairly Obvious.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So, advice, because we do have a lot of people in the audience who are writers. So advice for somebody who is writing fiction, what would you tell them?
Don't take it personally. The thing is that when I was entering contests, there were...
Wait a minute, you're talking about submitting the manuscript
yes,
in a contest?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
When I was submitting for feedback, mostly, because I didn't think that it would be anything more than feedback, because I was so new. So when I was submitting for contests, I ended up having one contest in some Midwestern state and one contest in a southern state, having feedback from both of those. And the one at this state had 2 judges. One said, oh, we have we don't like your female character, and the other one said, we love your female character. And over here, this judge said, we don't like your male character, and the other one said, we love your male character. And all of a sudden, I understood that it's not personal. The people who like the things that I like are going to love my books, and the people who have different tastes from me, they're not going to care for it. But it's not personal.
It's not personal. Deborah, that's very, very good advice, and we're unfortunately going to have to close on that very optimistic note. So I do want to thank everybody for watching, and if you missed part of the show, this is Deborah Davis, and you can catch the interview on YouTube. We have a channel up there, Zita TV Network, and we'll get that posted soon. And Deborah, thanks very much for being on the show. I want to thank my crew also, and I love to close page 1 with the words of the fantasy writer Ursula Le Guin, who said, there have been civilizations that did not use the wheel, but there have been no civilizations that did not tell stories. So find your story, find a way to tell it, and join us again next time. Thank you.
Food for the crew and guests is provided by Manchester Grill of Manchester, Connecticut, and Angelo's Restaurant of Glastonbury, Connecticut. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email Zita at zitatv.com or write to Zita Christian, Page 1 TV, P.O. Box 1515, Manchester, Connecticut 06045-1515. You can watch this and other episodes of Page 1 on youtube.com/Zita3x3.